Welcome to It's Personal, Finance Canada. I'm Christine Conway.
And I'm Cameron Conway.
And this podcast is a very personal look at personal finance in Canada. Welcome to It's Personal Finance Canada. I'm Christine Conway here with Cameron Conway. And if you're in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, or the Yukon, and you'd like help with your personal finance, investment, or insurance needs, feel free to find us at braunfinancial.com. So recently, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, when you've been in business for a while, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing to look at your business and to kind of audit yourself a little bit, to look at your products, your services, your offerings, and to make sure that they are still meeting a need. Meeting the vision if this was your creation of the organization that you had started, or if it's something you've purchased, like for us when we bought Braun, making sure that it is still in line with the people that you want to serve and the experience that you want people to have.
Yeah, so this week we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, kind of our entrepreneurial handbook. And then next week we're going to look at the other one and talk about the employee manual. So we want to cover kind of all the basics of being your own boss and how to work for another boss next week. And for some people, you might actually have to do both of these at the same time. You might have your day job and you might have kind of your side hustle own company running in the background.
Yeah, and I think that when you've run a business for a while, there's this tendency to kind of fall into the status quo, and there's a tendency to fall into these traps where your good intentions started the business, and then the money started flowing, things started going well, and then you kind of lose sight of where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do. And I think that's what I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit today. This idea that, yes, you're right, Cam, so many of us are pulled into so many different directions where we can have very easily more than one career, right? We can have our main job, we can have our side hustle, we can have the business that we're trying to get off the ground. Or, you can be a full-time small business owner, you can be a full-time entrepreneur. There's such a range these days of people doing different things.
Yeah. And so like a month ago, we talked about some of the mental health challenges faced by entrepreneurs. But today we want to get more into the operations side, how to take care of your customers, how to run things properly, how to essentially make your little small business, whether it be a storefront or an Etsy thing going on in the background, actually be successful so you can actually pay your bills and have money to invest and retire and all those other good things.
Well, that's it. And I think when people start businesses, they often start it kind of as a passion project, right? It's that old traditional advice of, oh, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And oh my goodness, we can tell you firsthand that advice, once you get kind of into it on a full-time basis, is just not true. You will work harder than anyone else in that organization. And as the entrepreneur, you're the one that's getting all the calls, the emails, until you get to a place and a space where you can hire other people to start offsourcing and offloading some of those responsibilities. But not everything can be offloaded either.
A lot of people, they might start off as a hobbyist or an artisan or a specialist to some degree where they just kind of produce this one product or they produce this one service. And it can actually be a pretty big step to go from being the specialist artisan to being the boss, the entrepreneur, and actually making a living off of the things you enjoy doing at one point.
Well, and that's exactly it, because when people start producing things that make them happy, that sounds and feels to me a lot more like a hobby, right? You are doing something that uniquely serves your own need, your need of creating that enjoyment for yourself or having that experience for yourself. But that makes your business very you-focused. And it's really funny because a lot of the traditional advice for people getting started is along that lines of, well, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to earn? How much income, how much free time do I want to have? This whole lifestyle, life space business where you're creating all these things and it's a passion project and it's all these things. But I think that when people kind of put the grits down and put the boots down and say, okay, you know what, I want this to be maybe a full-time thing, you have to start thinking more client-focused, more client-centric. And that's what I kind of want to get into today. So when you're building something that you love, that's your passion, that's your hobby. But the business can begin when your passion becomes trying to find something that serves other people within your interest or within that hobby. So you can still get really good at it. You can still obsess over the details, but now you're building something for someone else.
Yeah, it's that real difference between what you did before that you enjoy to how other people can enjoy it and pay the bills. Like this could be, you could be an artisan, baker, or salesperson, or anything else like that. But for a business to succeed, as opposed to a hobby, it's how do you meet the needs of other people? How can my skills and talents better other people's lives, or fill a need, or solve a problem, or something else like that?
Well, and that's when I think being good at business becomes being good at understanding someone else's perspective and understanding the type of experience that a client wants to have when they come to you, when they come into your storefront, when they interact with your customer service rep or your sales rep or whoever it might be. What are they looking to achieve? Is it just to meet an immediate need, serve a transaction, or are they looking for something more? I mean, in service-based businesses, they often are looking for more, especially if the relationship is longer term in nature. And really, for a business to succeed over the long term, you're looking to build relationships with people to the point where they feel like this is the only place that I would ever really want to go to meet this particular need because they understand me so well. They understand what I'm trying to do.
Yes, I feel like we have to kind of separate the idea of satisfying a need as opposed to make people happy, because they can be very different things. And for some people, it's impossible to make them happy, but you can at least pour a cup of coffee for them.
Oh my goodness. But you know what? Even the needs, sometimes people will come to a business like ours and they won't even know what they want, or that they'll know what they want on a very base level. And let me explain. Like if someone comes in and says, I want to buy a product, sell me a TFSA, I'd like to buy life insurance. Have I solved a problem for them? Have I done something different than what they could get anywhere else? And I think that as you're walking into a business for the first time, one of the ways you can tell if they're going to be client focused, if they're going to want this to be an ongoing relationship, if of course that's what you want to as a customer, is really in the way that they address how you have asked them for their services. And what I mean by that is something along the lines of in the questions that the business is asking. And I would kind of argue with that, how quickly they are to just give you the solution. So is this a two-way conversation? Is this something where you're communicating a need and they're making a recommendation based on what you've said? I mean, even if you're thinking about going into a hardware store and you don't quite know what you need to do a project, you're explaining the project that you want to do, but you're looking to someone to have that experience level to say, oh, you know what, here's how is a good way to do this right, or here's what I would recommend to get this done. That's more solutions based. That's not just here, you need a hammer, you need a saw, you need this particular product. It's figuring out what you're trying to accomplish with the product that you're looking to purchase so that the fit is truly there.
Yeah, and that's how you keep clients over the long run. Like even like the mechanic we take our cars to, we go there because we know they're doing good, honest work. And if they don't need to do something, just tell us flat out, we didn't need to do this, or here's a better solution. So we keep going back because it's hard to find honest people in certain industries. So you do good, you take care of the client, and that generates referrals, that generates repeat business. And sometimes you give up a couple extra dollars today, but you could make hundreds more dollars tomorrow by just doing things the right way.
Well, and you think about it, like any business that you go to, what are you looking for? You're really looking for a consistent, predictable, friendly experience. You want to be treated fairly, you want to be treated well, and you want to feel that the company has taken some time and put some thought into the steps that you're going to take as you walk through that experience, right? From when you ask about the services and offerings, have they thought through, if I want this type of product, like in our example, a TFSA, have they thought through asking those follow-up questions that could lead us into a whole other conversations about goals and things that I'm trying to accomplish and different ways to get there? Or like we said, with the hardware store or the auto body that we go to, have they taken the time to do those little checks that maybe can uncover a problem that you didn't know you had? And I think that taking something like that people will call an exceptional experience and turning that into a procedure where you normalize the exceptional and you try and become a firm that anticipates needs, even the ones that the client won't be aware of or can't express themselves, that can be huge in setting yourself apart from your competition.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even have to be super exceptional. Sometimes if you are just above average, that will set you far above the competition.
It's true. Or thinking through, like I said, put yourself in their shoes. So rather than I'm in business for me, I'm in business because of this, and this lifestyle that I want for my own needs, I'm in business to serve someone else. Like, I don't know who said it, but it's that whole concept of, everybody wants a go-getter, but that whole go-giver, right? Like the person that goes out and gives freely and then hopes that over time there's the reciprocation. And I think there is. I think that exceptional businesses and exceptional practices are built on that, are built on not only a really solid knowledge of your industry and what you do, but also the willingness to put that customer experience kind of front and center.
Well, and businesses are also built because people realize that they can't do this themselves. So they have to get a host of other people to come in and meet those standards and to do those same things, but not just the one person whose name is on the door.
Well, and I think that the businesses that are most successful are the ones that have really narrowed down the type of person or industry or sector that they can uniquely serve. And then when they're writing out their listing of offerings and all of these things that could complement what the person is coming in and asking for, it's just such a perfect fit because they are already operating in that space. They're already experts in that space or able to deliver a product in that space that meets that need so well. So what are people looking for? I think is the question that you have to ask yourself as the entrepreneur. And how do I understand this thing that they're going to go through? Like, it makes me think of, what was that show, like Undercover Boss or something like that? Probably a little put on. But this idea that as you progress in your organization, as you get bigger, as you've expanded, as you've outsourced and taken on staff, have you lost touch with what the flow is for someone working in your organization, your staff, and also someone walking in the door for the first time? And I think both of those are really important because your staff need that training to do things the way that you used to do them. Your staff need to know how much power and authority they have to allow a client to walk away happy. What is permissive for them to be able to say, I can settle this quickly, I can make this person smile, I can get them to go to an outcome that they're positive and happy with.
I can give the kids a free cookie at the bakery.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a bakery closest that will do that.
Some still do. Used to be the norm, but yeah, one of those extra value adds. But giving them, the staff, the autonomy to do that is huge, right? But also thinking about it from the client's perspective, in the sense that as a good entrepreneur, you've thought through in advance the problems that this type of person would have, and you've tailored something specific to them more than just, here's a hammer and a bag of nails kind of thing. And I think it's really interesting that as companies try and stand out as the preferred option or the preferred solution, it does have to be about that story. And it does have to be about the story of the experience that the client has had that they now want to share with someone because it was so positive for them and because they were able to do that, right? So I think where we fail is when we miss providing that experience or when we don't think through all of the unspoken needs or we don't fulfill the needs as they come up. I think that we find ourselves in a situation where people will talk about that too. So really, as the business owner, you're auditing your own business. You're constantly looking for points where people fall off or points where people could have been nurtured a little bit more or could have been educated a little bit more. And when you seek to provide that to them, I think it builds trust. Kind of like a friendship or like that auto dealer that we like so much, where you feel like that person really is trying to help you.
Yeah, so this is going beyond using like ChatGPT or another AI generate to just give you a bunch of buzzwords to put in your website or your Google description. This is really the word of mouth that comes out of the decisions you have made, the things you have done, the things you trained your staff to do, and the things the overall business has done to garner kind of the spontaneous good reputation that will come from others. And this is more powerful than advertising can ever do because advertising will make people curious. A good reputation will keep them coming back.
Oh, yeah. And I think good advertising is really just communicating how you're going to meet that need for that particular client. Like if you've really distilled it down, I would argue that if you're putting your money somewhere, putting your money into creating that amazing experience is probably more valuable than just throwing advertising dollars at your business. Like, sure, short term, that can get you sales, but I think longer term, getting clients that are fully bought into the process, because from the second they send an email or place a phone call, it was responsive, it was warm, it was friendly, it was engaging. The person that I talked to was actually interested in getting to know me and understanding what my need was. And they weren't just trying to sell me a product, they were trying to understand why I'm where I am today and where I'm trying to go and figuring out the fit there. That's exciting. Like, that's different. That's a different way to kind of run a service-based business. And I think for a lot of us, when we scale, when we add staff, like I said, that's when these things start to change and start to fall off. And even just when you have had the same offering for a long period of time, you stop thinking through the why. And I think the why is so important.
Yeah, and scaling is a big thing, because this is essentially when you stop being like the only person that is doing everything. This is where it goes from a hobby to an actual company. This is when you figure out who you need to bring in, what tasks you need to offload to others, and just to really accept that leadership role. Like I'll use even like a restaurant. The goal is not for you to cook every single meal. It's your job to create a recipe and set a standard and pay people to do the cooking. And this applies to a host of other industries. This is that huge shift of mentality that has to come, that really takes you from being a hobbyist to a business owner.
Well, and keeping in mind that it's still your recipe, it's still the things that made your business great that you now get to train other people to do your way. And I think when you're hiring, the most important thing is to hire for personality and compatibility and that client first mentality, right? Because you can train just about anything, but that owner job of figuring out what that training program looks like. How do we create a mini-me? How do we duplicate something that I do naturally or that feels natural to me because I've been doing it for years? And how do I turn that into a process that someone else can then make the end user, the client, feel like they've spoken to me without speaking to me at all?
Yeah, and another part of this isn't just kind of finding like the little mini-me's to replace the things you do. This is also when you bring in people to essentially do the jobs you don't know how to do, or you feel unqualified, or you just plain don't like. This is sort of like the offloading of some responsibilities onto paid staff. But a lot of people talk about the good side of this, where, oh, I don't have to do X, Y, Z anymore. You still have to have somewhat of a competency to understand those things you're offloading. Like, I'll give you an example. So like one company I worked for briefly had something like this. So what happened was the lead sales guy, he took over the company. He's very good at sales. The other guy was retiring. He took over, but he hated bookkeeping. He wanted nothing to do with the books. So he offloaded that to another staff. He never checked the staff's work. He never cross-checked the books, it sounds like. And so what essentially happened one day is that the other staff eventually started to embezzle money from the company. He came up with this whole scheme of just doing double GST remittances and got like $300,000 out of that company because the guy who was supposedly in charge just turned a blind eye to the thing he didn't want to do. And the only reason he got caught was the guy doing the embezzling had a heart attack. And my dad came in part-time to help with the books. And then like on day one, he saw the problem. But this could have gone on indefinitely till the guy retired. So the big warning is, yes, it's good to offload things you don't want to do, you're uncomfortable doing, but you have to understand what it is. You are still responsible for those people, and you still have to be able to check the work and maintain certain standards. So you don't have another like big problem like this other company did.
Well, it's this idea that you can delegate tasks, but you can never really delegate responsibility, right? If you're the owner and your name is on the door, everything that happens under that umbrella is there. It's yours. And understanding your obligations, understanding your responsibilities, and even just like you said, like back-checking, fact-checking, making sure the work was done to a certain standard, better you than a regulatory organization, or better you than the CRA, or better you than, this guy that could have retired one day out several $100,000. And I think these things, even though these stories, shocking, right? But I've heard it more than once where people in positions of trust, when you trust a little bit too much and don't have the parameters in mind, it can go sideways.
Yeah, I think we can start to really wrap this up and kind of just go through like a bullet point list on like how exactly you actually make a good product or service to take your hobby into a successful, repeatable business that can actually help you live comfortably.
All right, I would say that it's doing that audit and doing it often in the sense that you're actually looking at and experiencing your business as your customer would. So you have to ask yourself the question around how do you build a good product or service that meets that person's need, and really put yourself in their shoes, in their position, so that you're understanding what it is they want, both spoken and unspoken.
Yeah, I would add it might even be your most hardest to please client. So the ones who are already happy will be ecstatic that way.
Exactly.
You have to set that baseline.
Well, and I think it starts with the walkthrough. And this can be something that you physically do. This could be something that you can ask a trusted friend to kind of do covert so that no one knows it's being done. But have that experience yourself as a customer. Have the experience from that first phone call, that first email. How is your staff interacting? How are they talking to them? How are things being communicated? Are they following up in a timely manner if things kind of fall off the rails? Is it a process? Is it an experience that you yourself would want to have?
Yeah, and this actually does not sound as creepy as it is. Maybe for a smaller business, it might sound a little odd, but for large companies, this happens all the time. This is called a mystery shopper. This is a whole third-party company that large companies will pay to essentially send people in and just do the everyday customer experience to make sure they're meeting the standards. And I've gone through this in some places I've worked. It's like, it could be like a 20, 30-page report of like 100 different things they are checking all across your establishment.
Or it could be basic quality control, right? And I mean, yes, you can set procedure, but once you're hands off, you need to make sure that the procedure is being implemented consistently and that the staff are aware of the pros and cons of following it and making sure that everybody is on the same page of what that experience should look and feel like. And when you get in front of the person that you're looking to work with, how comprehensive was that fact-finding process? How quick were they to try and sell you a product? Or how slow were they in getting to know you? Did it move at the speed of a relationship? Or did it move at the speed of a sale? Like, is this something that you would want? Is this someone you would want to talk to on an ongoing basis and build a long-term relationship? I think if you start to frame client experiences as people that you want to work with over the long term, you'll have a completely different perspective and a different scope around how you're going to treat them, number one, but also the duty of care that you're going to take and the time that you're going to take on the front end to make sure that you're fully understanding how to serve them.
Yeah, and this also works the opposite way depending on industry. It could be trying to do all this as fast as possible in the most efficient way you can.
Well, I think efficiency and the concept of trying to build a long-term relationship, they can go hand in hand, right? You can be incredibly efficient at your job. You can ask very detailed, very clear questions, but it's still asking the questions that other businesses in your industry are not asking, going that extra mile to get to know the people that you want to work with, and truly like filtering clients for making sure that they are people that you want to work with over the long term, because this has to be a positive, happy experience both ways.
Yeah, this is the whole overall experience, especially in certain industries that are like ultra competitive. Like, okay, so I'll just throw like coffee shops out there. So within like one block of our office, we have Starbucks, Tim Hortons, Blends, Waves, and 2 bakeries that serve coffee. So there's a whole host of competition, and it comes down to what people is their favorite type and what can they enjoy the most, and where do they have the least amount of frustration ordering that coffee.
I think you missed a few too. I think there's a few more. But yeah, and then it becomes about compliments, right? Because if I'm choosing one coffee shop over another, maybe I like the people that serve me the coffee, maybe I like the coffee itself, but maybe it's in the other services that they are offering to me as well, the compliments that are also meeting my needs. Like maybe I want a particular type of pastry this morning, or a particular pizza, breakfast pizza, Tim Hortons. Is that a thing? Anyways, it's making sure that we are now meeting those needs and differentiating and advertising. I would say if you're a more established business with advertising dollars before you spend your next dollar, making sure that what you're communicating to the person that you're trying to reach as the experience they're going to have is the actual what they're going to get. Because that inconsistency or that incongruency between the message that you have and the experience that someone has is what will damage your reputation over the long term.
Yeah, and don't go around begging for 5-star Google reviews before you actually did anything.
Exactly. Well, and understanding that this is the society that we live in, right? People value stories and people love to share good experiences. I think the key here is if your experience of your business is consistent, if it's predictable, if it's repeatable, then it is so much more likely that people will want their loved ones and their friends, their family to have that experience too, just because it is such a crapshoot. I mean, in our industry, financial services, it's such a broad brush, right? It's such a big category that you have to really have process to distill down what a certain type of person would need versus a completely different type of person walking in the door. And you have to make sure that you're able to differentiate your offering accordingly. But that gets missed sometimes. Like that get missed a lot of times where you try and just broad brush everyone who's walking in.
Yeah, and this is the one thing we like about Braun because we have a lot of flexibility. We work with a lot of carriers. So we'll do like one carrier for CIDI. We'll do another couple for investments. And it's figuring out what the individual needs and which of these like 12 or 13 carriers we have access to can actually meet that specific person's need.
Well, and then I think once the actual product or service is completed, making sure that we're taking the time to ask for that feedback. And I know we all hate those, emailed customer feedback surveys or whatever, but sometimes it's just getting on the phone. Sometimes it is a quick little yes, no thing, but it's trying to make sure that we are giving the people that we're serving an opportunity to tell us what we're doing well and where they feel like it could have gotten better in the frame that we are trying to serve other people like them. And by giving us this opportunity of telling us how it was for them, we can improve. And we can make it better. So there you go. There's a lot of pros to being a small business owner. And there's a lot of pros in taking your hobby and turning it into something that becomes a viable business that will benefit people over the long term. But my encouragement for you today is to try and get out of that I thinking, what I want to achieve, what I'm trying to get, what my income should be, and try and get into that service mentality, especially if you're a service-based business where you can actually add tremendous value and give people even more than they thought they were looking for when they knocked on your door in the first place.
Yeah, and the other thing is also don't be afraid to ask for help or advice, like talk to other business owners. You could have a local chamber of commerce kicking around. That's something Christine did earlier in her career. She was actually the president of the New Westminster Chamber of Commerce for quite a long time. So talk to other people. They may not be in your same sector, but see what worked for others and try and see if it can translate to what you are doing. So just try to avoid the idea that all this has to be done by you exclusively alone with no one to help you. That is a big misconception that can hold some people back in the first few years of business.
Oh, absolutely. We learn so much from each other. We learn from our clients, we learn from our peers, we learn from our competitors in the messaging that they're using and seeing their ads. And honestly, talking to clients that have been their clients as well about that experience, right? There's so much that can be shared when you ask and when you take the mentality that if you are open, we can make this better for everyone.
Yeah, and after you've gone through this whole little like multi-bullet point process we just talked about, if you can just take all that feedback and actually turn it into a proper system for yourself and your employees, this will kind of help you get through sort of those initial growing pains, and then you can finally hopefully be a long-standing, thriving business.
Well, and understanding that this is not a one-time exercise, this will have to be repeated multiple times as the years go on through your career. But having that attitude of wanting to learn and grow is the first step in the right direction. So that's how we saw the Entrepreneurial Handbook, doing a little audit of your business and trying to turn a hobby into something that provides true value to other people that you're looking to serve. And if you're looking for help with your personal finance, investment, or insurance needs, feel free to find us at Braun Financial, braunfinancial.com. Until next time, take care.
And all the best.
If you are open, we can make this better for everyone.
Oh no, she froze. She got stuck.
It's been the kind of day we've had.